Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. And so on to topic 2, which was one that you suggested, kind of in a similar vein, a documentary movie this time, directed by Mike Brett and Steve Jamison, chronicling the national football team of American Samoa. How did you come across this movie, and what is it about for people that are listening?
So super random way to come across it, but I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole where I listened to a podcast with a man named Ben Crow. And Ben Crow is Ash Barty's mindset coach. So when Ash Barty was previously not having a great time playing tennis and was taking things a bit too seriously and having a rough go of things, she kind of came across Ben Crow. He's also worked with the Richmond Football Club before they won their premiership. Ash Barty then went on to win Wimbledon. Steph Gilmore, Dylan Alcott, a few other people. But basically Ben Crow was a guy that he used to work for Nike and was all about telling stories to people, and he kind of adapted that approach to people. And his whole thing is basically that we are the stories that we tell ourselves, and then if we can change that story, then we can lead our own path. And the way he kind of puts it is embrace your weird, just be you, and the more that you're you, the more successful you will be. Basically, he has an app that podcast got me onto that has its own reading list, and it had Next Goal Wins as a part of that. And it's something that I couldn't believe that I hadn't found. I think it's a football documentary that follows American Samoa. I didn't even realize that American Samoa wasn't just Samoa. That there's two Samoas. That later I had to then go and Google and found out that it was divided up during, I think, World War II, that they ended up, the Americans didn't want to quite give it back, where I can't remember the people that had the previous Samoa, but they gave it back. And after they'd lost to Australia, what was the scoreline again? It was something ridiculous. I think the worst international football loss ever. So they lost 31-0, and I remember them losing 31-0 to our soccer team back in, it would have been early 2000s. Yeah, in a World Cup qualifier, and it was heartbreaking to watch it. Like, it was literally like as though my level of soccer team went out and played against international footballers, and it was heartbreaking to see them go through that. So this documentary then goes and follows them bouncing back and trying to come back from a 31-0 loss and not having given up, and obviously going through a few changes to try and get themselves off the bottom of the FIFA World Football ranking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when you recommended, I was like, oh, what is this? And I initially thought it was a movie. It's not yet. It's about to be. They're making a movie about this story.
Yeah.
But for now, it's a straight documentary, basically them trying to qualify for 2014 World Cup and shake that reputation as the worst team in world football. And to do so, they bring in the Dutch-born, American-based coach, Thomas Rongen. What did you think of him as a coach and his style? I felt it was very different to Arteta's.
Yeah, the opposite. But again, I think it fits straight back into what we're talking about, that any level of sport and any quality of sport comes with that level of drama, and in this case, growth. And I think seeing Rongen come in from a very intense professionalism point of view to a place where these guys and girl were getting up early in the morning, going to training, going to work all day, coming back to do another training session, then having their family commitments and not getting paid for it whatsoever. And he was trying to put professional standards on them at the time and arguing with people. But I think it was really nice to see his approach kind of grow into it. And he was obviously coming off the back of some pretty big tragedies in his life, losing his daughter. I think it was 18 at the time, passed away. So he obviously had some growth to do for himself and some healing to do. So I think it was a big step for him to even just step away from American football. I guess the good thing about being American Samoa is that they're still connected technically to the American soccer association that they have, so they could call for help basically and get a fairly talented coach come in. But to see him go so hard line and then kind of fall in love with the job and the place and the players, and then change, it was nice. At first, I hated it. The more that the kind of movie went on, you can see him growing and climbing the mountain, kind of literally and metaphorically, and kind of growing out of that and having the perspective of other people put in, I think was really nice. There was a lot of really cool stories within it. I think the goalkeeper, obviously, being the big one again, that he lost 31-0. Was it Nicky was his name, I think? But he lost 31-0 in that game. And once they started to go back to another qualifying campaign, they called him back. He'd moved over to actual America, as a lot of them do. They join the military and things to be able to get off the island. But they called him back in to be able to play again. So even for him to just not give up after losing a game like that and basically being a laughingstock internationally for just trying his best, and then to grow from that, I think was awesome. They also played with the first transgender player to have ever played in a FIFA World Cup qualifying match. And even just their perspective. So I had to click into gear a few times. I can't remember if you could tell me what year the film was made. I think it was like pushing 10 years ago.
So it's in 2014. So if they were trying to qualify for the 2014 World Cup, they were obviously filming this.
Yeah, like 2012,
2013, and then it came out in 2014 as the World Cup happened.
Yeah, and I mean, even like I had to catch myself a few times in the context of this transgender player who I think was getting kind of called like I can't remember the correct term for it, but dead naming and whatever it is, where the previous coach refused to acknowledge that they were transgender and they were calling them by their previous male name. But then the American Samoan culture was totally okay with it, and just like 10 years, literally 10 years ahead of their time into what now we're only just starting to socially accept in our sort of part of the world. I think there was just so much, and to be able to watch her step into a starting role and then become player of the match and things like that, it was such a feel-good documentary. And as a football fan, it's something that I'm really sad that it hasn't got as much attention as it should have. That, like we said earlier, the Aubameyangs of the world that drive gold Lamborghinis and act like dickheads end up getting all the attention. Whereas these people that don't get paid anything, that just want to score the first goal for their country and then get their country off the bottom level, and that the money isn't even a thing. They just do it for the love, and to see them be able to do that and have some success, I think was just super uplifting. So it was, an absolute hidden gem for me. I can't believe that it's just been sitting there on Stan for that whole time, and it took Ben Crow for me to even know it existed.
Yeah, like you, I thought it was a really endearing tale, like of an underdog story of this group of players just working super hard, and they finally see some success. Like they don't go out and become world beaters in a day. Like they work super hard and they finally scrape a win and then a draw, and then they still lose to their nearest rival. But to them, that was the greatest thing ever. Like they played their 3 games and they didn't get thrashed in all 3, so they were stoked.
Yeah, even just seeing them score that first goal, like it just felt like it didn't want to go across the line. And I think, look, I would love to see how they would go now. Again, I want season 2. Like I just want to see how they're going now and where they're heading, and they deserve everything that they get. They try so hard. Even they had to survive a tsunami at one point, like literally.
Oh yeah,
I think they said their groundskeeper got washed down the road. Like the guy, not the actual equipment, but the actual human got washed down the road. And then within like a week, they're all there cleaning things off of their own pitch. And yeah, just some of the stuff they go through and the lives that they live, but the happiness that they find within that and the connection that they find. And again, like owning who they are, I think it's just incredible to see the results they can get from that. So yeah, that's a big recommendation from me.
Yep. And after watching it, I did a bit of research, and apparently the American Samoan Football Association had refused permission from numerous film and TV crews before they were finally approached by the directors of this show and gave them the permission to film. And then, like I mentioned, they're creating a movie based off this documentary. Taika Waititi is at the helm of that. It's going to be adapted for a Disney movie. They began photography in 2019, and it's scheduled for a 2023 release. So it's actually not as far away as I thought it would be.
Good.
And in terms of the cast, we're getting Michael Fassbender from 300, Inglourious Bastards. Magneto from X-Men is probably the most recognizable one. He's set to star as Thomas Rongan, so I think that's a really good choice there. And they've also got Rhys Darby, Elizabeth Moss, Will Arnett, and Angus Sampson involved in this movie. So 2023, we'll be back reviewing Next Goal Wins, the film.
Yeah, good. I think if that's any indicator, it shows you just how uplifting that story is. Like that's not a cheap task by any means. For Disney to want to go and do that, it shows you just how much impact that story can have.
Yeah, and like Disney don't just make movies for the sake of making movies. They make movies to make money, and they obviously have faith that the story in this is strong enough that it's going to get people involved and want to come check out this movie. I'll be interested to see if it goes
I love that.
cinema or Disney Plus.
Yeah, look, in the end, I reckon it will more likely to go Disney Plus, but Disney Plus is still Disney Plus. Like it's not. It seems like a lot of things are doing that nowadays, and that's where a lot of the exposure for most things is now. Anyway, sadly enough, it's quite rare to go to the movies now. I think unless it's for me, it was like Top Gun 2 was the only thing that made me want to go. So yeah, I wouldn't be against it. I just love hearing that, and I love hearing that the people that are behind the story, not just Thomas Rongan, but the American Samoans, getting their story told again, just on a bigger level. And I just think that's so cool that they're being recognised.
Yeah, I hope this movie comes out and as they like start to get closer and closer to qualifying for the World Cup. That'd be so heartening to see them finally achieve something like that and getting into a major tournament.
I just want to see them beat Samoa, regular Samoa, which I still can't believe there's two Samoas.
Yeah, I knew there was two Samoas, but it still weirds me out every time that there's two islands that are essentially the same thing with essentially the same name. So that's our 2 reviews for this week. In terms of top recommendations for the week, which one are you leaning towards? It's going to be a hard choice for you, I think.
That's a very, very hard choice. Look, I am a lifelong Arsenal fan, so I can't go past All or Nothing as like if you're a top end football fan, All or Nothing is always good. But I think in terms of a story that has the potential to warm your heart and a story that deserves more recognition, I think Next Goal Wins is going to be my recommendation.
Yep, I went with Next Goal Wins as well. Like, All or Nothing is amazing, but I think we all expected that to be great with the backing and the support that had. But Next Goal Wins is that pure hidden gem that just has the power to motivate you and inspire you to go and do better in your own life, whether it's playing your weekend sport or just pushing really hard at work or whatever it is that you're pursuing. Next Goal Wins is a great inspiration. Alrighty, that's everything for the week. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamYapsMedia and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_CSEE. Thanks for jumping on, Buddy.
Thank you.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Blake Robinson, Karina Renee, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hatcliffe, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.